Hey, Nurse Awesome. So we're going to use the nursing process to figure out how to study and to actually plan our study time. First things first, let's assess ourselves. Figure out what it is we need to know about the particular topic that we're studying. So be real honest here. Certainly doesn't hurt anyone but you if you're fibbing about what you do or don't know. Where are you at? How much do you need to know based on the syllabus, based on what your instructors told you that they need you to know? This is really especially important in those kind of cumulative finals where you have a lot of information that you have to cram into your brain. Based on your assessment of your knowledge level on the topic, then you need to diagnose yourself. Do I need to refresh? Do I need to dive off the deep end into the book for an entire week only about this topic? Is this a skill-based thing? Do I really need to step into the laboratory and spend some time there? Do I need to go to the library and do some more research? All of that will help you plan your time. So now it's time to lay out our plan. That's the third phase of the nursing process, right? Planning? Yeah. So let's lay it out, How much time do you have in the day, in the week, in the time before the test? Is this fundamentals? Is this something that you really need to lay a strong and sturdy foundation for? Or is this something that you're not particularly interested in and you just need to know enough to get past the test? For me, that area was OBGYN. I knew I was never going to be an OB nurse. So I just crammed things into my brain that I knew that I needed to have for the test and then just let it go. Those are all things that will help you lay out a plan. Once you've created your plan, it's time to implement it. And this is where the rubber meets the road. You really have to be firm with yourself. Kind of work your plan. Super easy to let go of pieces of study time because your friends want to go do something, because you're burnout or tired. You really got to stick to the plan because you're not screwing anybody but yourself if you don't do that. It's the hardest piece, really. Work your plan and then evaluate where you're at. For me, I saved the evaluation piece until the very end after I had tested. So after my very first test, I evaluated the way that I studied. And the way that I studied at first was just by reading information out of the textbook. And for some reason, I thought that it would just jump into my brain and I would be able to kind of answer questions based off of just reading things over and over again. So not a very effective study technique for me personally because I couldn't really recall any data. I did well in the first test. I don't even know how. It wasn't certainly because I had learned the data in a way that was meaningful and useful to me. So here's what I did on the next test after I evaluated myself. I used the steps of the nursing process as I was reading data. So if I was reading data about respiratory acidosis, for example, here's just the sheet that I made. And it tells me what the assessment piece is, what I would expect to see in my particular patient if they had respiratory acidosis. It tells me what kinds of conditions cause that. It tells me what kinds of laboratory values I want to see, what my AGs will look like, what my pH will be, what my CO2, my bicarb, all of that. And then down here on the bottom, it tells me what my nursing interventions would be, what my actual tasks would be as a nurse, not medical, but nursing, and then what I'm going to evaluate. So I took some time and typed this one up because I really, it's my second test. I really wanted to be like Nurse Awesome, right? As the semester wore on and I got less time, I started making these kinds of sheets, and essentially it's the same information. This is hypervolemia. Here's my assessment data. Here's what I planned. As I diagnosed it, I'm going to do these particular things. I'm going to implement these things. And here's my evaluation data. Hypovolemia is down on the bottom. I found it really useful to group things together that were opposite. And that way I could kind of see them side by side and know if I'm seeing one thing as opposed to the other. The other thing that you may do, a very simple thing like this, assess, diagnose, plan, implement, evaluate, and just create a sheet of paper like this as you're studying your chapter. And then, so I'm working on CHF and I want to assess what would I expect to see in a patient that has CHF. And that's assessment data, right? Signs and symptoms. That's what you're going to see when you do an assessment. I would write that information underneath the assess column, and then I would know that what I assessed was necessarily going to help me plan my diagnosis, my nursing diagnosis, right? And that's the part that says, ineffective tissue perfusion based on whatever. There's another video about that. then that diagnosis would help me create a plan. What is my nursing intervention going to be? And then I would put my implementation or my task. That's where I'm actually going to get to do the work of being a nurse. And then I would evaluate myself. And so for one particular topic, I may read 5 or 6 pages, and on one piece of paper, I would have listed out the steps of the nursing process as I pulled the data out of the text. This was a super effective way for me to study. I was a very good student. I made great grades. And, that's just, I think, because I was able to recall data in a way that my teachers wanted me to on those NCLEX questions. And that wasn't because I was any smarter than anyone else, certainly in my class. It was just because I was able to study in a way that made sense for my brain. And I think that a big part of that was using the nursing process. Assess, diagnose, plan, implement, and evaluate. Okay, so by now you have heard me rattle on a lot about the nursing process. It is your friend. Try to use it in everything that you do for a couple of days, and then try to use it to create your own study plan and when you're actually studying your test information. I think that you'll find this a very useful way to study nursing data, and then later when you're actually in the real world, all of that stuff that you have put in your brain in a very meaningful way will come pouring out when you're taking awesome care of all your patients. So until next time, I know that you guys are going to do awesome on your next test, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.